log in. Thank you all. Hope everybody is logging in. They can see us, hear us well. But we are live, and we'll give everybody a few minutes to log on. Go ahead and drop us a message as you all log on to let us know that you are here. Again, as we have a very, very good discussion this evening, go ahead and drop us a message in the comment section just to let us know that you all are here. Again, welcome to our live stream tonight entitled The Black Response. Again, as you all come in, drop us a message on Facebook in that comment section. Drop us a message on YouTube in the comment section to let us know you are logged on live. And we're going to jump off some good discussion in just a moment. Hey, Christina Moran, thank you. Thank you for watching. Nicole Burton, good evening. Thank you for jumping on with us. We appreciate you all jumping in this evening. Again, as you come on in, let us know that you're in here. We're going to have some great discussion tonight. Tyran Pruitt, thank you for logging on this evening. Amber, thank you for logging on as well. We appreciate you all. Again, we'll give you all a few minutes to get in here, and then we will get started. I see the numbers are creeping up. So yeah, let's go ahead and give folks a few minutes to jump in, and then we'll get started with this evening's discussion. Do me a favor, as you all log in, make sure you share this broadcast. Share this broadcast with your family and your friends. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and log on myself and share the broadcast. Look, Reverend Heath coming in. He answering questions already. We ain't asked no questions yet, Reverend Heath. Hold on just a second. We ain't asked no questions yet. Jerry Curry, thank you for logging on. Reverend Adrian Heath, thank you for logging on. Paulette Willis, thank you. Richard Moffat, thank you for logging on. Pastor Edward Martin Jr., we appreciate you all. As you log in, make sure you share this broadcast with your family and your friends on Facebook and on YouTube. You can also screenshot it, post it on Instagram, whatever the case may be. But let everybody know you are watching with us. All right? Give you guys a few more minutes to log in. Amy Wallace, thank you for logging in and checking in with us as well. Let's see if we have anybody. Donna Curry on YouTube, thank you for logging in as well. We appreciate you all. Again, y'all come on in, share the broadcast with your family and your friends. We're going to have a great discussion this evening. Again, we're asking some questions, some important questions this evening. Should we protest? Should we riot? Has the time for discussion with the powers that be come to an end? That's going to be the butt of our discussion this evening. Again, we're not going to solve every problem, macro or micro, but we just want to have some great discussion this evening. Yolanda Lashley, thank you for logging on. We appreciate each of you all. We'll give you guys about 2 more minutes, and then we'll start with introductions and jump on in. Larry Hall, thank you for logging on this evening. I feel like I should have some background music playing. Feel like I should be playing Fight the Power by Public Enemy in the background. I think that'll be a good soundtrack. Some good Public Enemy. I'm unmuting you all, so don't say nothing too reckless. I think Mike muted himself, so I can't unmute Mike, but Mike muted himself. Again, let me know that you all are in here. Got quite a few people logged on tonight. We appreciate each of you all as we engage in this discussion entitled The Black Response. How should Africans in America respond to social injustice? We have some great questions that we're going to engage in tonight. And then we'll entertain some questions from those of you all who are watching. And we're going to rock and roll. Again, we won't hit everything tonight. We're going to try to be off here by 7 o'clock if time permits. Want you all to spend some time and unplug for a little while. All right? So again, thank you. It's 6:05. I want to jump in and get started. Thank you all for logging on. My name is Wendell Martin. I serve as pastor of Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church, as most of you know. And we are at 1710 Cary Street here in the city of Joliet. Again, our mantra is that we love God, we love people, and we prove it. And this is just another way where we're looking to prove our love for Jesus Christ by having some tough conversations, some tough questions, tonight being the Black response. I'm going to introduce all of our guests tonight. I'll just be hosting, they'll be talking. I'll introduce all of our guests tonight, and then they'll give you a little more information about themselves. I'll start first with Mr. Gregory Reeder, who is an attorney with Reeder and Brown PC right here in the city of Joliet. I wanted to grab individuals who are from the city of Joliet, who live in this city. And Gregory Reeder is a practicing attorney right here in the city of Joliet. Greg, go ahead and greet the people. Give us a little bit more information about yourself.
Good evening. Blessings to everybody. I pray that whatever I say tonight is not taken as anything but constructive. I pray the Lord is with me tonight, keep my heart and my mind together as we tackle this subject. I appreciate and thank you for allowing us to have this time to talk. And again, it's just one voice out of many, nothing better, nothing worse than anybody else's. But I'm humbled to be given this opportunity to talk to you about the situations that are going on in this country, in our area, and what we could possibly do to find some peace. I think we're all trying to get to that final answer of peace. The question is, how do we get there? And honestly, I've struggled with this even today as I prepared, but prayerfully, we're going to be able to get through it. I thank you for this time. And again, Greg Reeder.
Absolutely. All right, next we have Mr. Mike Clark. Michael Clark is the president of the Joliet branch of the NAACP. We call him Mr. Mayor around my house. So he's the president of Joliet branch of the NAACP and involved with a whole lot of other stuff. Y'all welcome Mr. Mike Clark.
Thank you, Pastor Martin, for inviting me to this conversation. I think it's a very important one to be having. I appreciate the other brothers who are on this virtual panel as well. So ready to get into this discussion, and thanks again for building this forum.
Last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Danny Cochran, who is professor at Arupe College, which is a subsidiary of Loyola University, and he's a resident of the city of Joliet, been involved with the NAACP. He is a brilliant scholar, PhD from Illinois State University, and I wanted to bring his brilliant mind on here to converse with us tonight. Let's welcome Dr. D.C. Cochran.
I don't even have to say anything at that point. I think you articulated all this stuff well. Thank you, Pastor Martin. Thank you for, aligning me with Brother Reeder and Brother Clark to have this conversation. I think it is a conversation that's overdue. For those that don't know me, I'm very rooted in cultural studies. So that looks at the dynamics of power within culture and how that operates. And also influenced by critical race theory. So a lot of my mindset will be coming from that, and also pop culture. So, that's why Wakanda's in the background. We all looking for one. So thank you all. And, I pray that we are able to just enlighten and educate others and bring some sort of catharsis to this hectic moment.
Good deal. Well, all right, I want to get started because we want to maximize our time this evening. Our first question, again, everybody's going to get a chance to answer this first question, but the first question is going to dig into this method of response. There's no secret that we're experiencing social injustices at an astronomical rate. It's nothing new to the United States or these yet to be United States of America. So my first question is, how should our community respond to these recent injustices? Again, there's a lot of anger, there's hurt, there's passion, and then we debate how we respond. So we debate the issues, and then we debate the responses. So I feel like now we're spending more time debating about the response to the issues than we're spending talking about the issues. So, we're not saying there's a right or wrong answer, but how, Greg, start us out. How should we respond? Do we protest? Do we riot? Do we loot? Do we burn down the building? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the first response that we have to do once you've had an injustice to you is to kind of take it into account. If we do not come up with a strategy for victory, we're bound to fail. And again, if I'm hit by somebody, I could swing right back, and that's just going to get us into a fight, versus I want to win the situation. I don't think that we're going to win by rioting and looting. I've already seen enough people, and you've talked with them, I'm sure, who have understood that a knee to a black man's neck to where he dies is wrong. And that's white, black, Mexican, brown, all of our people have noticed that, but we will lose that advantage of understanding if we start rioting, if we start looting. People will not understand that justification. At the same time, we have to have a response that says, how do we attack and challenge the people that are supposed to be over us in authority? We got body cams that came out as a method of policing the police in Ferguson. However, we have a number of municipalities that have refused to actually purchase those body cams. But when they do purchase those body cams, they don't turn them on. So I think at this point in time, the demand has to be to each and every one of our law officials that you will not send a police officer out without a body cam on. Right now, we have seen a number of regulations that people don't like, but you're going to deal with them. I've had to wear a mask. I've had to go in there in order to buy goods and services. I will wear a mask to go to a Walmart. Officers will wear body cams from now on, and we'll be able to check that every single time there's an arrest so that there's no questions. If your body cam is off, you're already behind the 8 ball. It was asked of, it was bargained for. Now it's not, we're not asking, we're not bargaining. We're demanding that happen here in Joliet so that we will have a camera that we can always go to. At the same time, our response, and we have to understand the law, even an unlawful arrest, we cannot physically resist. Makes no sense whatsoever, but that is the law. If I'm being unlawfully detained by an officer, we still have to be able to make it to the next day. Our job, and I believe it was stated in Menace to Society by Charles Sutton, is to survive. If we're going to be able to make some change, we need to survive. So we cannot give them the ability or whatever masquerades as their idea. We go and we get detained, and then we come and fight that battle and win that battle a different way. I look at the response of the CNN reporter, Omar Jimenez, who was actually arrested while videotaping and doing his job as a press correspondent. He was compliant, didn't fight, didn't have any difficulty with that, and was released 1 hour later, and he survived to tell his tale. That is not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. Doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes, but survive, get to the next step. So now he has a platform that he can say, hey, this happened to me. You saw it with your own eyes. Our response has to be tactical, and our response has to be one that is for our survival.
What about you, Mike? Agree, disagree? I think Greg has made some great points. Some may rub people the wrong way because some people may say, "No, I ain't going down without a fight. If I'm getting arrested and it's not warranted, it's unjust, I'm resisting." Like, talk to me, Mike. What are your thoughts?
So I mean, I can't respond to this without bringing up what we all saw happen to Brother Floyd, and I think that all of us have grown up in these United States of America. We understand what has happened and what that means. And we didn't have to see the video to say that there are some issues in this country right now as far as policing and a whole bunch of other issues that we could get into. You know, one thing I'm not going to do is ridicule, criticize, or down the people who have gone to the streets. I may not agree with all of the actions that they've taken, but one thing we have to remember is that this country was built on protest, violence, racism, and power. We celebrate the Boston Tea Party. What was the Boston Tea Party? They threw the tea in the harbor to create economic pain for their oppressors. So now we have people taken to the streets. Whether I agree with it or not, their point is we're going to create economic pain so that people start listening to us because we feel that we've tried everything else. So unless we get some people in high places that are willing to sit at the table for real and look at the situations and say, we are ready to make serious change, I fear we're going to be here again. I see people in the streets upset. I see people online upset. And what we need to do is we need to keep that same energy when it's time to vote, when it's time to make sure that our elected officials are putting the policies and procedures in place to make sure that this doesn't happen. I don't need you to say, trust us, if this was to happen in Joliet, you know, we would handle it the right way. They'd be, now show me the policies and procedures. What are your use of force policies? Why are we not discussing? So the thing that bothers me the absolute most about this entire situation is the fact that there was an officer who had so many complaints against him, still on the force, doing what who's in charge of having those conversations to make sure that, you know, hey, this bad apple, I mean, clearly there's an issue here. And we needed to do something about it long before he killed that black man in the streets.
Sir. Yes, sir. Dr. Cochran, talk to me, man. Yeah, I see your wheels over there turning. Let's talk, man. Let's talk.
Well, and let's not forget during the Boston Tea Party, they destroyed their own property, right? To make a point. That's the part that is often missed. They destroyed their own property and destroyed the tea in the process, right? So again, history is very selective. I will say too, right? Like we talk about this systemic, let the system work. And I just saw a video with James Baldwin. I'm a huge James Baldwin fanatic. And he was just like, you know, why do we keep having this conversation about progress, right? When is the progress going to come? Is the progress going to come in my lifetime? It was supposed to come in my father's lifetime. It's supposed to come in my grandfather's lifetime. And even with that due process, right? Like the officer complaints, the person that just ran for presidency, I forget her name, the Minnesota governor, right? She had a chance to kind of, set the record straight on that, and she didn't take the opportunity. I see what happens is you're just seeing that angst, right? And I think it's the angst that we all have. We've all go through to work, and I'm just going to speak on behalf of us, right? I'm taking our agency. And especially if you deal in white corporate America, let's just be real with it. Like you have to create this facade where there's some bumps and bruises that you're going to take, and there's some micro and macro aggressions. And sometimes, like sooner or later, they build up, they bubble up, right? And it comes out in a meeting, and they might be like, Brother Reader, why did you just go off? Like, why did you go off like that? Brother Clark, why were you upset? And I think that's what we're seeing, right? Like we're seeing like, it's a collective anger, and it's just not Brother Floyd, right? And it's just not, Sister Taylor, right? We're seeing a whole bunch of anger, and I think we're like, when you have enough, sometimes violence is the response. I'm not saying that it's correct, right? But I understand. I just finished telling Pastor Martin that I grew up in Chicago. And a lot of people always say, I can't believe they're burning down things in their neighborhood. Most of those places aren't Black owned. And when you walk up into those establishments, they make you feel like you don't belong there. So you also get that conductive angst of like, this is my neighborhood. I don't own any businesses. When I walk into the store, somebody's following me. Somebody's treating me rude. And we're not like talking about like going to Harold's, right? Right. We're talking about like non-Black owned businesses and legitimately. And so you get all this, and then you stockpile that with the lack of access to healthcare. So that's the part that people also forget. Like this COVID thing is disproportionately affecting Black and brown communities. So you're getting that anger too. Because I know people who have went to the hospital and been sent home 3 or 4 times. And it wasn't until dire restraints that they were hospitalized. They were Black. That was the case with the COVID. So you're getting all that angst too. I can't get proper medical treatment. I can't get proper respect in my neighborhood. If you want to add in that unemployment, and then all it takes is for you to go in Target and somebody talks to you the wrong way, right? So then Target becomes, for lack of a better terms, your target, right? Like it's a do the right thing type of mentality that is happening right now. And so there are ways to do it, and I understand the angst, but it's also not us protesting and burning things. But that's a whole nother conversation, right? So we can get into
another conversation. This
is that conversation.
Right. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to belong it, but that's the thing. Like, for those people that I know that do this protesting thing, they organize, they meet, they plan, they strategize, all the things that Brother Cooper was talking about. And they train their people how to respond effectively to police, right? How to disengage aggression from police or disengage with other activists. And they will tell you, that's not us. That's somebody else that's coming in. Whether it's agent provocateurs, you can go look that up, right? Whether it's people in the police.
We're not going to do this tonight. Well, we need a dictionary to know everything you're saying. And the ABC for the beginners. Okay.
Well, agent provocateurs are essentially people who work for government entities, whether it's the police, FBI, CIA, and they're planted to provoke and increase and enhance violence. And that could be with any other organization too, right? Whether it's white supremacists, whether it's Antifa, you hear all these things, but there are people that are planted in there to push these things. So it makes it much more than it is, just in Ferguson. So.
And I hate to go back to the Boston Tea Party, but it happened during a quarantine. And they dressed up as Mohawk Indians to throw them off the scent. Yeah. To say, no, this wasn't, this wasn't the colonists. This was the Mohawks. So I mean, and that kicked off the revolution. So I want us to keep all these historical American facts in line when we tell the story.
I get that, Mike. I hear what you're saying, and it's always good to be accurate. But again, I believe it was the Roots that said, never do what they do. We have to actually go with our actual resolution that's based on peace, that's actually based on love. Because there's no way that we're going to stop the systematic oppression that's out there. Because again, the system didn't create the hatred in them. They had it in there because it's fear. You're not going to be able to cure that through a system. We have not been able to achieve educational equality when we have the girl from Full House that's buying her daughter into USC. We're not going to change that because we just have better standards or better ACT scores. The system is trying to cure some of those things, such as affirmative action, which is not necessarily going to cure your fear or your hate or your thought that I'm lesser than you. We got to cure that with love, but at the same time, we also have to understand that not everybody's going to love you. But we have to have them see us as people. Now, Colin Kaepernick, they didn't see Colin Kaepernick. They didn't see any of the passes he threw, any of the runs he did. They didn't really care until he took a knee, because he was actually sitting when the national anthem was done, nobody saw that. But once he stepped up and he was kneeling, they at least paid attention. Now, the next step we have to do is to garner that attention and to move it forward. Obviously, it didn't get their attention, but let's be honest. Did the LA riots gain us the attention that we needed and gain us anything where policing stopped? Or did we have more killings since the LA riots and the acquittal of the officers that beat Rodney King? Have we gotten anything from the riots in Ferguson where people were looting and rioting there? No. But at the same time, in the daytime, the actual protesters were calling, meeting people, and actually meeting with officials in Ferguson to say, this must change. The thing is this, I believe King actually had said that I think we have to see that a riot is the language of the unheard. But what he also said was that I hope that it would be nonviolent because riots are self-defeating and socially destructive. At the end, we have to choose a path and decide what we're going to do. I'm not going to be rioting, not going to be looting. At the same time, we have to figure out if we're going to get to this end game, that we are only going to be able to do that when we have a plan where we are able to go and meet the people in power and demand these things of them. There's no election for a police chief. Joliet's police chief, Crest Hill's police chief doesn't get elected. They have to be appointed by the mayor. So there is somebody that is in charge of them. And if that's the person we got to talk to, we got to be willing to go on down there to talk to them. Also vote. Don't get that twisted. Vote, because that puts the person in who is actually going to be accountable or make them accountable.
This is great discussion because, again, I wanted us to not all say the same thing on this discussion. That's why I didn't get everybody with the exact same points. I wanted to make sure we had a balance of arguments and we're all thoughtful, because at the end, we all want the same thing. We may not all agree on the how, but I believe that we all still want the same thing. And I want to make sure that we can intelligently articulate why we lean towards our how. So I think that we've heard some great arguments about, all right, to riot or not to riot. And I don't think anyone is saying on this panel, hey, let's go riot, let's go riot, let's go loot, let's go burn down Target, let's go burn down. None of us are saying that. More than anything, what we're saying is when people do it, like, we can't move our discussion to now where we're solely focused on the response. We're spending all of our time and energy addressing the looting, and now we're no longer spending time and energy addressing injustice. I don't think any of us will ever agree on the response, but I think one thing we all can agree on is there are grave injustices that need to be addressed. And that's what I want to make sure that we move our focus back to the injustice. Each of us has a sphere of influence. Each of us can say, all right, all of us have a niece, a nephew, that can go out and protest. Each of us can have that conversation. If you say, I don't believe in rioting, you can call your nephew, you can call your niece and say, come here, I need you to stay your behind in the house tonight. But I think we got to make sure we're not so focused on the response that we don't deal with the issue. We got a lot of comments and things. We're going to get to those in just a second. The other question that I want us to discuss tonight, and again, y'all said some stuff. I want to come back to a few things because this is so weighty, and I know there's probably nowhere in the world we'll be done about 7:00. We may have to come back for a part two, but at least we're talking. At least we're having a discussion. I've heard much about strategic plans and how protests should happen. I think another thing that we were seeing a lot of is white folks who are trying to tell us how to respond or how to process our anger or what we should do. Why are you all so mad? Why are you doing this? So we have a lot of white folks trying to police our anger and our rage. But I'm going to throw a curveball in here too, y'all. We got a lot of Black folks who have bought into respectability politics, who are now also trying to police each other's rage. So again, we've redirected our attention from the injustice to now policing each other's rage. Mike, why you so mad? You so angry? Why? Greg, I saw you take a popsicle out the freezer at the gas station. That ain't right. You know, so what are your thoughts about that? Talk to me, Greg.
Well, one, I ain't just taking a popsicle if I take something, but that's a whole nother subject. I think everybody is trying to come up with a reason, and I don't fault white people for saying, hey, I want to come up with a reason. I'm not the person, but I want to help. And we don't necessarily mean it in a wrong way, but we don't understand the situation as well. Everybody wants to get back to peace. At the same time, there really wasn't any peace. If you're not sitting in my shoes and understanding that while I'm kneeling, there's unrest and you're just passing it off as you're trying to get attention, then no, you're not understanding me. You're not hearing me. You can listen to Jimmy, but you ain't hearing Jimmy. And it's one of those things. I think we as Black people have to, one, be real. We are 13 million people in this country. We are a small part of the population. We have to, one, accept the concept that we didn't bring ourselves out of slavery by ourselves. There were a lot of abolitionists that took some L's right along with us because they knew that owning another human being was not right. Again, if I'm with Harriet Tubman and we walking all the way from Louisiana, there's going to be some stops in between. Where are we going to get places to stay at? We have to go into a white person's house who is willing to take that risk, our burden that we wear on our skin. They're willing to take that on because it's the right thing to do. When we were beaten and put hoses on and marched across Selma, there were college kids as well that came down as part of the Freedom Riders that also got involved and also sat at the Walgreens. And mind you, they weren't there on day one when Rosa Parks and even the young girl that actually did it before Rosa Parks did not move from the bus. But at the same time, they got involved, and that's what ultimately got attention, and it got people to say, hey, this is wrong. The Vietnam War didn't stop because, gee, we just figured out this is the wrong thing to do. It got televised, and people saw this didn't make sense. Ali goes to jail because a Vietnamese never called him no N-word. We have to understand that we already know what's been going on. We have to educate them, and we need them to tell their other white friends, that's wrong. You're not going to do that anymore. I saw Floyd George, with a knee on his neck, and I'm not standing for that anymore. And I might have been deaf when Colin was just taking a knee, and I might have missed Amadou Diallo, or I might have missed Tamir Rice being killed for being a 12-year-old in Cincinnati. I don't know who Sandra Bland is, and I don't know any of the other people that were killed, but I don't have a choice anymore. I have to get involved. And once we realize that there's more people that saw that video and said it's wrong and that cannot stand, and it's not an anomaly. Because again, just a week before, we had Ahmaud Arbery, who was killed by somebody that used their authority. And then we had a person, Cooper in New York, who called on a Black person who was saying, why don't you have your or get your dog? Please get your dog in New York City. Well, I'm going to call on you because you're an African-American male. And I'm going to tell them that you're threatening me, and that she believed that her privilege would allow that. We have to get that understanding that that ain't right. Video cameras, best technology that we've had in the last 20th century, because now we're able to show them what we already knew. And again, truth is the ultimate litmus test. It will clean up. It'll be that disinfectant that our president doesn't know a thing about, but it will show them what we have always known, that there is racism in this country. It is still here, but we cannot let it stay. We're going to have to do something about it, and they have to get on board. No more sitting on the sidelines.
Can I interject real quick? One thing, because everybody's watching and I'm a reader. This is a good, if I can get it to show up correctly, probably not.
You got the
This is a good book.
Wakanda
Right there.
background over here.
Yeah, I know. This is a good book for people to talk. It's by Robin DiAngelo. Why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. It's written by a white woman, right? Like, so part of the issue, and kind of feeding back on what Brother Reader's talking about, is like, for us, when we talk about racism, it becomes recursive. And what I mean essentially by that is like, here goes another Black person talking about racism, right? But where I digress from Brother Reader is, it's like, we need allies and legit advocates, not benevolent paternalism. And what that essentially means is like folks that come along and feel like they're doing it and we should be proud. We should be proud that they're helping us, right? And so the notion too that it's easier for us to say all of this, and we talk about respectability politics. So I just want to make sure that my frame of reference is where everybody else is. Because when I think about respectability politics is how much do we say and when do we say it and where do we say it, right? And my issue with that is about the black body has always been patrolled and surveilled in America, right? So wherever we go, we're always surveilled, we're always conditioned, we're always having to feel like, if I say this, this is how it's going to be interpreted, right? I cannot speak for any other culture, but I will tell you from just research and just my own personal understanding, Black people are the only people that I know that every type of our emotional expression is a stereotype. And so when we do talk about respectability politics, what is the right way to do that, right? What is the right way for us to articulate how we feel and how we think? And even when we're being passive, then we're not being taken serious, right? Even when we're being aggressive, there's the hypermasculine Black male. Even when I'm joking, there we go, there's the jigaboo, right? So I think that the notion is this is what makes it so dangerous, right? There is no right way to protest, right? If you show me one, and if you give it to me, let me know. If we want to work within the system, I'm all for that when the system works to my advantage. I am not going to go and play with the house's money when the house has already been set up. And essentially, that's what I feel like when we're working with and we're talking about respectability politics. I always have to remove my human self in order to make somebody that's not me or quote unquote white feel better about how it is that I feel and how I think, in order for them to listen to me. We're in opportune where my human self, and this is what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was really standing for, is you should see me as human, not that I'm Black, but the fact that I have to be an educated, smart Negro that's sometimes passive, until he was killed at the end when he started speaking about Vietnam War, right? Selective history. If that's how it's for me to be accepted. So I understand where you're coming from, Brother Reader, but at the same time, that respectability politics also does psychological damage to us, right? Because at some point in time, we're always giving up part of us. And it's almost like a one-sided relationship. I'm constantly giving you this. And I mean, if you really want to make the analogy, like sooner or later, then I'm gonna get in trouble for this. America's gonna have to reconcile this domestic violence relationship with Black America.
Talk, man.
And so if you don't understand what I'm saying, right? Like the history, the culture, like there is a quote, and I believe it's from Toni Morrison, that says, America wants our soul, but it doesn't want our blues, right? So they take all the good things about us. And man, if I really want to go on, if you even think about Get Out, right? I was watching the conversation with Tyler Crowley and Matthew Modine, and they were talking about the film Get Out. And the scariest part of Get Out is not the fact that they wanted to steal his body, but after all that stuff went over, when the police sirens came, right? Because in your mind, you started to think about, we know what's about to really happen because it's going to be blamed on the protagonist from Get Out. And so for me, it's just like, sometimes I agree respectability politics, but sometimes, I want to quote Lauryn Hill for one of her Fuji songs, but sometimes you got to say one of those words, and sometimes you have to show that, real respect comes that to show people that there's a line. And if they know that they can cross a line, go ahead, brother.
No, I think that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't see it as respectability politics. I call it respect. And that's something I demand of somebody. And you will give me that, or we ain't got nothing else to talk about. It could go another way.
But
So
that's
it's not, I'm trying to be respectful, or I'm putting on airs, or I'm talking white, or any of this, that, and the other. My thing is this: you will respect me for what I have to say. If you do not, I have a plan to get it another way. You will respect my intelligence. You will respect my my knowledge. You will respect how I play this game, because this ain't my first day in class and it ain't gonna be the last. So again, it don't have to be a fair one. It don't have to be nice or anything like that. I can be respectable if I choose to, but I will be respected. And I did say one thing about the population. We are actually 40 million people in this country, and it's about 12.7% of the population. So I had said that there was 13 million. I was wrong. I wanted to correct that. But at the same time, we look at when Barack Obama first won his election, it was 68 million people. That means 28 million people also came on board and said, hey, now mind you, that's if we counted children. We're talking about the voting age. So there was a lot of different people that got behind him and said, this is the person. And guess what? They didn't do it just once. He did it twice at 65 million the next time. So again, just assuming if there's 40 million, most of them, some of them are even under the age of voting. That meant that you got a coalition of people that figured out that this is where we need to go and we are ready for this. So it's possible, but we do need help. We can't do this alone. Black and brown is not enough alone. Black, brown, we have to also bring in the yellows. We have to bring in Asians. We have to bring in people of all colors, all mentalities, all races that are saying, hey, enough is enough. Arabs. When I saw 9/11, all I thought was, I'm glad it was not a Black person. And unfortunately, I felt that way. But I also saw the type of activities that were happening to them when they put a travel ban on countries I've never been to, but they're coming over here and they're getting arrested. We have to be there for them as well as them for us, because that's where the humanity comes from. We see people as humans, because I've been in that position and I could have been in that position again. So therefore, we have to step up and show people we are united. You're not going to oppress us and let it go down. To one person that happens over here in the brown community, here in the Asian community, any injustice anywhere is a justice everywhere. We got to be able to put in as well.
Mike,
so I want to kind of get back to what I think the original question was about, what we want to see our Caucasian brothers and sisters do who see themselves as allies or see an issue with or are not comfortable with what has happened and what they saw on TV, specifically in response to the George Floyd killing. I see it's a very diverse group of people who are out here protesting for whatever reason. I don't think we've seen it to this level before. And so that needs to be spoken about. I mean, that is a positive sign in my eyes. Now, what I want to see is I want to see our Caucasian brothers and sisters keep that same energy going forward when we're having discussions about making the change that we want to see. It's not time to get, well, we protested. No, it's not time to get quiet. Thank you. You were doing the right thing. But when we're in the boardrooms, when we're in conversations that maybe there's no other Black people in this specific conversation or room, are you going to speak up and then be the person who says, no, this isn't right. We're going to do what's right. What's happened to this point is no longer acceptable. We need some of our brave, like we had during the civil rights movement, the abolitionists. We need for those people to speak up and say, we're not taking this anymore. Because of the numbers, as Brother Rita said, they're not, the numbers are not in our favor. But when you start adding in the people who want to see change, if they're willing to stand up and voice those changes are needed, because what scares me, what my fear is, okay, the protests die down. We go back to speaking in our to our elected officials, and people start aligning themselves on the historical points of view, where it's, okay, now let me start looking out for myself and my family and my street and my block, and not really worrying about what's happening over there until the next instance of police brutality takes the airwaves, because it's going to happen if we sit still. And what I see is, when situations like this happen, everybody's on the same page. We need to make change. But when it's time to say, hey, we need to look at the policies and procedures that are in place differently, if some of them don't seem to benefit me, I'm no longer the person who is so hell-bent on having change. That is what has to be different going forward. And we need to have those real conversations with our, I think the word allies. So let's pay attention to everybody who's ready to make that stance, and let's hold each other accountable going forward. Because one thing, go ahead.
Okay. No, I'm saying I think we have to hold each other accountable, but that's the thing. We have to get involved. I mean, as Black people, let's be real. How many out there of us were worried about the DACA children? Because, hey, we're not of Latino descent, but they're snatching up people at the courthouse or sending in ICE agents and snatching up people. People of different colors got involved as well and said, no, that's not happening. What happened when places of worship were attacked because they were Muslims? Nah, we don't have to get involved. We're Black folks. We can sit on the sideline this time. No, we also have to show. The best way that you can show me that you're my friend is by being my friend when it ain't about you and it ain't about a Black issue. Here's the thing. You're saying that white people have showed up and said, hey, you know what? I'm carrying a Black Lives Matter, because it does. Guess what? They see us as people. That's what we need. And we have to keep that same energy. We cannot let it get divided or taken from us because somebody wants to put on the ABC News or CBS News, oh, looters. Let's not forget why we're even out here in the first place, which was because law enforcement thought that a Black man's life was not worth having and took it. They're out there because they said the same thing. That's not right. And there's more people that say that's not right than there are that say that it's fine or he shouldn't be charged.
We got about 13 minutes left. And again, I know we're going to continue this discussion. There are two things that I want to address, the comments that came up, because I'm monitoring Facebook and YouTube while I'm on here with you all. A couple of things that I want us to make sure we articulate. Someone asked the question, why weren't we at the protests that happened in Joliet today? I want to make sure that we are clear about responding to injustice. There is no one way to respond to injustice. And I want you all to chime in with this too, because I think a lot of times, specifically in the African-American community, we look for affirmation and support of what we're doing. And we think that because everybody isn't doing the same exact thing, like I would never throw shade at somebody because they didn't log on to this broadcast. I'm not going to throw shade at somebody because they didn't share the post about this discussion today. The bottom line is, like, this discussion is just one drop in the bucket. This discussion is one drop in the bucket, a part of a major response to an even bigger issue. So I never want us to get to the point where, like, if I call a protest tomorrow, that I expect there to be 100% attendance from every Black person, every Black leader in this city. And if a Black leader, a Black pastor, a Black councilwoman or councilman doesn't show up, then they don't support the movement. I think that as African Americans, we have got to be mature enough to know that there is no singular response to injustice. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a brother earlier this morning, and he was saying, man, when do we need people protesting? But we also need people who know how to have conversations with the police, because everybody protesting don't know how to have conversations with the police. We need judges, we need attorneys, we need accountants, we need people working on all the front. So this person may not be out there on the front line protesting, but at least if they're having discussions with some judges and some police, and they have some relations, like, we got to fight this thing on multiple fronts. And I want to make sure that we never get to the place as a people where we're either all one thing or nothing at all. It is absolutely imperative. Listen, I'm happy when I saw people protesting, when I saw people on the corner of Larkin and Jefferson, when I saw people on the corner of Route 59 and Caton Farm Road, when we saw people that were down. I saw the live videos of folks who were down at the Joliet Police Department. Man, absolutely do the doggone thing. And never in a million years would I say, well, y'all protesting, y'all need to get on to our live stream today. We got to fight this thing on multiple fronts. And I think that's one of the things that happens to us as African Americans. Like, we spend so much time turning and fighting each other, and why you wasn't here, and why you didn't say nothing last time, and the last time somebody got, like, we end up fighting each other, and then we don't get something accomplished. So I want to make sure that as a community, we attack this thing on all fronts. I know for a fact I won't be able to make every protest. I know for a fact everybody won't be able to log on to every live discussion we do online. I know for a fact everybody's not going to be in the room when we have discussions with certain elected officials, but we don't throw shade at each other because we didn't make it there. And I want to make sure that's heard, and that we can at least get with one accord and filter our reactions through the lens of wisdom. The other thing that there was another comment that came up, and someone asked a question, is the church going to create a strategic plan to respond? And you all can give me your thoughts about this. One of the things that I think, and while I am a product of baby boomers, I am a product of parents who were raised during the civil rights movement, which we know that civil rights movement in America was birthed out of the Black church. I don't know if I want to say unfortunately or in some ways good, but the truth of the matter is that in 2020, more than likely, the revolution that's going to happen that changes the trajectory of injustice in our country, more than likely it's not going to be birthed out of the Black church. And a lot of people don't want to have to come to terms with that the church may not be, the Black church may not, because this right here is not about the Christian church. This ain't about the Black church. This is about Black folks who are experiencing social injustices, who may be Muslim, who may be atheists, who may be agnostic, who may not have an affinity for the Black church. I think during the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, like, most Black folks were a part of somebody's church, went to church. I think as Black folks become more diverse, I don't know if this next movement is going to be birthed out of the church. And when you say the church, like, like what church? Because man, Black pastors in Joliet couldn't even come to agreement about North Point. So it's almost like how do we, so yeah, so talk to me, like, do you all think that this is, what are y'all thoughts about that? Will this move happen from the church, or will this just be a community organization type thing?
I'm gonna answer a couple of things.
Right?
First, and I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna give this context. Protesting is easy. And let me tell you why I say that, right? Because protest is, at the end of the day, they know that once you finish marching up and down the street, you're done, right? And that's what I mean by that. And that's no shade to anybody protesting or anything like that. We're trying to do karate while the system knows Jet Kune Do. So this is my pop culture reference, right? So if anybody knows Bruce Lee was a master of many styles, right? And if the Black community is sitting here talking about, I just know karate and I know protest. See, everything that we've talked about has been recursive in history. Think about it. We're talking about the same things they talked about 30 years ago and 30 years before that. Peace and love protests 30 years ago. Protesting, marching down the street 30 years ago. We need to meet with officials and administration 30 years ago. And so that's what I mean by like the protest part is easy, but we do need people to be in those offices. Like, when is the fire and police chief meeting, right? Why don't you go to that meeting? When is the town hall meeting? So again, with that Northport situation, I think my concern is too, is like, it's easy for people to be like, we want the Black church to be leadership, because if it fails, then we can blame the Black church and we cannot blame ourselves, right? So the part of the accountability too is that the real question is, what is it that we can do as a community? So let's be real about it. Like, what is it that you're doing now? Are you at home? Are you on Facebook being mad at Facebook and you're sharing inaccurate threads and inaccurate information, right? Are you researching? Are you going out? Are you trying to understand the social justice issues? And then, is there a way to come together? So I always say this, I am in Joliet, but I'm from Chicago, right? And one of the things that I've noticed specifically with Joliet is there is this assumption.
Be careful now.
Check yourself.
I know. I'm gonna say this, but
You get jumped on Zoom today.
I know. I'm looking in the comments. I'm looking in the comments. I see y'all. Right. But there's an assumption that communication is dispersed one specific way. Right. So I saw that I did read that same thing about why nobody showed up. I didn't know anything about it. And there have been several protests that I have never known anything about. Or I've never seen people at the NAACP meeting. And I'm just saying that's just my conduit for getting information. And I'm not saying that's just like one way of doing that. But I think going back to answer your question, is the Black church played a specific role between the 1800s, whenever they were established, all the way up into the civil rights era, all the way until the millennials or Generation X and millennials started to abandon the church and started to look for other ways to do social reform outside of that space, right? Because at some point in time, and this is the conversation you also need to have, is that the Black church has become conservative, right? And that this is the way, and even as we deal with folks, this is the way how you should do something. That was 1960. If we can do a time machine, that might have worked for the 60s. But what about 2020? Because my biggest thing is why am I having the same conversation that I'm going to have with my daughter when she gets older about why the world is the way that it is, and I can't sit up here and say the Black church is responsible. I think it takes a collective. Like, if you have a law firm like Brother Reader, or if you're in NAACP, or if you have a social group that you're gathering, you can connect with the church. I think a lot of times people always try to find one main conduit to be the leadership and the focal point for two reasons, because they don't want to take the responsibility. And when things go wrong, they need a finger to blame, right?
Yeah.
Because now we're talking about group cooperation and group economics. And so that takes a collaborative effort on all of us. So we may not agree. And I think that's the difference between the Black community and other communities. I teach Hispanic and Latino children, right? So all the stuff that Brother Reader talked about, I'm very sensitive to DACA. I'm very sensitive to that smokestack that fell in Little Village that affects my students, on top of the COVID that is also affecting brown folks, right? But I have those conversations and I reach out and I understand, and then I build allies and advocates that way. And then I try to understand, what do they know so I can apply it to our system, right? Because that's the illusion of our system, is that we think here is the right way to do it. We're looking for the Black church for leadership, and you should for spiritual leadership, right? Mm-hmm. But you also have to remember in the 60s that a lot of the pastors were trained in criminal justice, social justice, protest. And you can't say the same for contemporary pastors, but there are pastors that are trained in social justice movements, right? So a lot of those that are going through theology schools like Garrett, or sometimes they have to create their own curriculum. So a lot of you all don't know this too, is that a lot of times that people go to seminary training and they have to create Black liberation ideology because those schools don't enforce those things.
Yes, sir.
Right? So again, when we do talk about the Black church, you got to be very careful about that, because what Black church, right? What are their ideas? What are their thoughts and their beliefs? Is there value? Is there more money sowing seed into the church than into investing in the community? And if you're okay, because a lot of times we're cool within the four walls of our sanctuary, but the real work of the Lord happens outside those four walls, right? That's discipleship. And discipleship is protest, is revolution, is changing systems, right? So we just can't forget that. I just don't make the church the nexus of the revolution. It should be a part, as we think about systems, it should be a part of the system. It should not be the main system. Because again, every church and every religion has its flaws, and it's easy for somebody that's Islamic to come and be like, well, we can't do the Black Christian church because they believe X, Y, and Z, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, like if you're a Nation of Islam, believes this. You know what I mean? So that's when we'll also find those various disparities. So let's not think of the church as this monolithic, this space, but a place that it can help assist, and it should assist, right? Because it's part of the Black community. Because if not, if it's just taking from the Black community, it's also serving the white supremacist system, because it's also connected to the taking and the energy and the soul of the people and the money of the people, and not distributing it back out into the community which it's supposed to serve. So that's my soapbox about that, especially growing up around Black churches, like where there's one on every street in Chicago, and not all of them are there to do the Lord's work.
Yeah.
So
Mike, you gonna go ahead, jump in, and then I'm trying to wrap us up so that we can, because we'll be on here all night. Y'all know us.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this directly answers the question that was asked, but one thing that I had to become comfortable with and had to check myself on early on was the fact that we have to stop arguing about which one of our issues is the most important. And if you don't agree, then you're wrong, and I'm going to fight with you. If you think education is the number one issue we need to fight, then take your tail and fight that education fight. Because I think it's financial literacy. That doesn't mean that I'm wrong or that you're right or that you're right and I'm wrong. I mean, take whatever the issue is and run that with that issue as far as you can carry that torch. I see so many people fighting about, okay, well, you're dealing with this situation over here, but that's not where we need to be focused. We need to be focused over here where I think it's the most important. And then we start going around in that circle. You know, the church is doing this, but the church really needs to be, NAACP is doing this, but they really need to be focused over here where I think it's important. And if they're not going to make that switch to where I think it's important, then there's something wrong with the organization. We have got to get away with that, because we have too many problems as a people for us to be fighting about which problem we're all going to fight, because it's not going to happen. We're never going to agree. Everyone gets on the same page, that the number one issue, number two, on the way down. If you have something that you want to be focused on, I guarantee you there's a group or a number of people who are already working on it. Get together with those people and work together to make that issue, to fix that issue. I mean, you see it on social media day in and day out. And I used to get in those arguments, and I don't even know, it might have been Brother DC that was like, Mike, this is not the way to go. I mean, because you can fight from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep about what issue, and you ain't fixed nothing. All you did was argue all day about what people, and nothing got accomplished. So if that helps anybody, focus on what you see as the issue and focus on that. And please, let's start putting some elbow grease and some work into fixing some of these issues that, as Brother DC talked about, ail our community now and ailed it 30 years ago and 30 years before that. We got to start fixing some of these things, and arguing about which one to fix is not going to get us there.
I think that we can sum it up by be very selective about where you invest your energy, because it takes energy to go back and forth with folks, and that energy, that mental, that mental, what do you want to say? That mental capital, that emotional capital can be used for actually creating something that brings about a change. I want to close with this. I feel like, I don't know if it's Roland Martin with closing words, whatever the case may be, but I'll give these closing words. And again, there's so much that we can discuss, and we might come back again. But again, the heart behind this discussion is because I, as a pastor of a multi-generational church, I pastor different people from different generations. And the common thing that I've heard from builders, from baby boomers, from Gen Xers, whatever the case may be, is I've heard the frustration. I've heard the hopelessness. I've heard people saying, like, I don't know what to do. Like, what can we do? I'm mad. I'm angry. I wanna kill somebody. I want to choke somebody. I want to smash a window. I need a hug. Like, there's so much going on. So I wanted to make sure if nothing else, we had a discussion, because like when your emotions are boiling and you haven't even talked through and processed some things, like that's tough. And you all know that can be mentally and emotionally draining, especially if you're a social media savvy and you're inundated with this stuff all day long. And then you turn on the news and it just makes you more and more upset. And what a lot of us don't want to do is move from that. Of course, DC talked earlier about passion fuels a lot of things, but some of us, not everybody knows how to handle anger and frustration in a healthy way. And it doesn't manifest itself as passion. It may manifest itself, in another way. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, just to get some stuff out, just to talk through some things, to get some stuff off our minds, for people to be able to hear some different viewpoints and say, amen, I hear you, I feel that, thank you, I'm challenged. Y'all helped me today. It changed my mind, so that everybody watching can go back and think through whatever it is you've been called and you are passionate to do, that you can go back and say, all right, y'all, all right, I'm good now, man. I heard some viewpoints. Greg and DC and Mike and Wendell didn't all agree on everything, but at least I heard multiple viewpoints that can help me process how I need to do what I need to do. So this is what I want to encourage our audience that's watching today. Number one, do what you can do and then reach out for support. Do what you can do. Again, we are not all going to do the same thing. I think one of the sisters, Sister Hobbs, did a great job at creating a protest for today. So it makes absolutely no sense for Wendell Martin to create a protest tomorrow. It would make no sense for me to say, well, I want to protest, so I'm going to start a protest tomorrow. And then Thursday, Mike is saying, well, I'm going to start a protest Thursday, and Friday. No, that makes no sense. If I want to protest, then I need to holler at the Sister Hobbs that created the protest, who started the protest that happened today. There's no sense of creating another online forum, another online discussion. I know that's a little different, but like, support each other, and don't assume that because people did not come, people did not log on, people didn't make the meeting, that they're not supporting what you're doing. We cannot assume that. Like, that's how we divide. And when we turn our attention towards one another and we start pointing fingers and things of that sort, let me tell y'all this. There are people in our community, there are activists in our community that I don't even know personally, I don't talk to personally, I don't have a conversation with on a regular basis, but I support, I pray for, I'm all for everything that they're doing, and I ain't talking bad about what they're gonna do. There are people in our community who make decisions that I absolutely 100% disagree with. There are elected officials who have made decisions in recent months that I totally disagree with. But I'm not saying, well, I'm mad at you now and I'm about to go to my corner and I ain't never gonna talk to you again. That's how our community falls apart, y'all. We gotta agree to disagree on some things, and let's move forward. And then last but not least, I wanna leave us with this thought. Dismantling white supremacy is not the responsibility of Black folks. Dismantling white supremacy is not the responsibility of Black folks. Black folks did not create white supremacy. And I know we may differ on whether or not we should have conversations. I know we may differ on whether or not we should have discussions and enlighten white people. I've heard people say it's not Black folks' job to educate white folks. I've heard people say it's white folks' job to educate themselves. So we may not agree on that. But one thing I believe that we can agree with is Black folks didn't create white supremacy. So it's not Black folks' job to dismantle it. So it's our job to empower our community. It's our job to be economically, it's our job to build in our community and not wait for them to do something. And we can do that. Like, we don't need white supremacy dismantled before we start empowering our community socially, economically, psychologically, all these different facets. We don't need white supremacy to be dismantled before we do that. However, if white supremacy is going to be dismantled, it's going to be the job of white folks to do it. And we need white folks to stand up and say, we're going to work to dismantle white supremacy. So if we have any, especially our white Christian brothers and sisters, especially our white pastors, which in many cases, conservative evangelical white churches have been some of the biggest perpetuators of white supremacy in the United States of America. We need you, especially these white churches who love the Black sound, who love having Black folks on a praise team, who love having Black musicians. We need y'all to say something to dismantle white supremacy. All right, y'all. Look, y'all.
Amen, brother.
we gonna keep this conversation going. If y'all see negativity out there, I want Black folks, any negativity amongst Black folks, especially on social media. Some people may critique this video and say, nah, blah, blah. I want y'all to squash it. Every negative word that's said, that's spoken about any effort in the African-American community to respond to social injustice. I need Black folks to shut it down. Don't even entertain the conversation. When folk call you and say, well, who is such and such, and where's such and such, and we this, and why they didn't do that, shut it down. All right, y'all? I love y'all. I love y'all. I love us. We're going to be well. Brothers, I appreciate y'all. I'm trying to find, I need some sisters on here next time so that we can hear the voices of our ladies in the community. We're going to have one of our sisters host it. So let's get it in, y'all. All right?
Pastor, I just want to say thank you to anybody that was online watching. Anybody that said any positive comments, anybody that said any negative comments, at least you got involved. To my other brothers that are here, thank you for sharing your knowledge, sharing your gift, and being with us. I mean, I hate to tell you, Pastor, you're absolutely wrong. It's not just white folks' responsibility, but God is going to work on them. But we're going to work on your faith a little bit more. But we're going to work with you. You're going to be all right. You ain't there yet, but you're on your way, though. But my God is going to be able to work that miracle out. Believe it.
Yes, sir. Love y'all, brothers. Y'all be